So it's been about a week, and Tiffany Henyard, the people's mayor, your super mayor, has been absolutely silent, boy. I think she went on W. Vaughn, gave her absolutely ridiculous statements while the interviewer just coddled her throughout. Ever since she went there, she hasn't been around, and things have been getting bad. I'm talking about contempt of court. I'm talking about people suing her and winning. I'm losing lawsuits against Napoleon Harris. Things are bad, right? But it gets even worse. Okay. We had Miss Lori Lightfoot the other night, and she gave her report. This is an important investigation and an important report because now it confirms all the suspicions we had. You know, suspicions of Tiffany not being added to the insurance, suspicions on how the money was spent on Amazon. All those things are now more of a fact. And just like documentaries that expose people, this is Tiffany Henyard's documentary. And after the documentary, what comes next? Typically the feds. So we'll see what happens, but let's do a quick rundown of the whole situation to start this off. But let's start with findings that go way back. You know, it's not always about politics. Tiffany Henyard is a liar. Because remember, she graduated from some college and, you know, it was in a speedy version of the courses. She just got everything done really quickly. OK, remember, there was a lot of rumor going around about that. Right. Let's hear what Lori Lightfoot had to say about it.
Let's go on. Let's give a little background on Mayor Tiffany Henyard. As many of you know, she's a lifelong resident of the village. She served as a village trustee from 2013 to 2021. Her bio cites that she graduated from Robert Morris College, although we were unable to verify that.
Now, they were unable to verify that. Man, if you are lying about where you came from school, then what else are you lying about? Imagine just having a normal conversation. Maybe a few of y'all have done this before, you know? Imagine having a normal conversation and lying about where you graduated from just to make yourself feel better. Just call yourself a drop. I wear the cape proudly. I'm a fucking dropout. Fuck school. You know what I'm saying? Middle fingers, you know, but come on. You can't be going around here lying about that shit, bro. Come on now, sweetheart, sweetie. Imagine that haunting you in your 40s. Be careful. Don't tell crazy lies like this. But let's move forward.
And she became mayor as of May 2021. Now, keep in mind, folks, there were two elections. There was an election at the end of February that went to a runoff, and then there was a final election later that spring. At the time of that second election, according to records provided to us by the County Clerk's Board of Elections, only 9.5% of registered voters in Dalton came out to vote.
Now, these things that I'm pointing out are specific because you know how Tiffany loves to say that she's doing the will of the people, bro. 9 point what percent? I don't care what percent, 9 point something percent, bro. That is literally your bingo crowd. You know what I'm saying? That's not the will of no people nowhere. 9%. But there's one good thing that Tiffany did. She got everybody in Dalton aware. And from now on, for a nice amount of years, I'm talking for a cool decade, I see people in Dalton, they're going to be a lot more focused and a lot more aware of what's going on with the electoral situation because of Tiffany.
To set the framework further, we wanted to make sure you understood who were the people in charge of making various decisions under Mayor Henyard's administration. Aside from Mayor Henyard was a village administrator. You may recall that was initially Dorothy Brown. And then in late 2021, Keith Freeman began his duties as the village administrator. The director of finance, you would think this is a very key position. Unfortunately, what we found over the course of our investigation is there are many periods of time during Mayor Henyard's tenure where that position was vacant.
And that comes in for Miss Tangenique. You guys remember Tangenique, right? And remember, she didn't have any answers for anybody. Tangenique would just sit there like a moron. And then all of a sudden, Tangenique Stop showing up because, oh, you can't get to Tangenique. She's at work. She's at home working. Oh, no, she's at home working because we just didn't need her here at the office. They hid Tangenique away. And keep in mind, Keith Freeman is the village administrator, but Tangenique was the director of finance. That's a very specific part of office that I think the trustees would be very interested in understanding, right? But it gets even crazier. It gets even crazier because even after Tangenique is removed and kind of hidden away from everybody, Tiffany takes it a step further to even have certain warrant lists hidden from the trustees.
At one point, Tangenique Miller fulfilled the role sometime in 2022 on a full-time basis, and then she went to a part-time basis by December of 2023 and worked only remotely. The position has been vacant again since early 2024. As I mentioned before, the Director of Administration is Janice Johnson, and you remember from my discussion about the purchasing policy, where there's supposed to be somebody who's a staff accountant that is responsible for monitoring and overseeing the purchase of goods and services on behalf of the village. There's no such position that exists in the village of Dalton.
I mean, why would we have someone to make sure that we spend properly in that type of an administration? That would be stupid. Of course there's no one covering that type of spending. You know what I'm saying? But don't worry, it gets even better because remember, she's doing little things to keep the trustees away. So Tangenique, she goes part-time. Tangenique's working at home. She doesn't know anything. Now, all of a sudden, she's sending out little secretive emails telling people, send me the information first. Let me see it first.
In September 28, 2021, in an email to John Kasparek, Chris Mirabali, remember this guy who was responsible for supervising the work here at Dalton, noted, quote, "The mayor has requested that the warrant list for both electronic and regular billing be sent to her first for review and approval prior to it being released to the board."
I mean, fuck it. At this point, let Kamal do it. Let Kamal go through the finances. You know what? Even better, let Justice do it. Because now you want the things sent over to you first. Keith Price can't see it. The trustees can't see it. You need to see it first. So at this point, it's all in-house. It's the Tiffany Henyard family taking care of your bills in-house, meaning only her. That is insane, bro.
November 4th, 2021, Trustee House emailed Mirabali seeking missing payroll reports that he had not received since the August 27, 2021 payroll. That same day, Mirabali forwarded that email from Trustee House to Mayor Henyard and sought advice on how to respond. On October
Mirabali, whatever the hell his name was, again, but these are people under Tiffany Henyard's control. So if she tells him to do something, he's going to do it because they get the money from her. Imagine someone saying like, oh, guess what? The trustees that are set in place for checks and balances asked me for some information that they're supposed to know, but I'm scared to give it to them, Mommy Henyard, because I need to check with you first, Mama Henyard. That shit's crazy. That's a dictatorship. That's how dictatorships begin, folks. There is a dictatorship happening in Dalton, and we could all go and look at it. We could all go and view it happening within our own country.
And Chris Mirabali reported to John Kasparek via email that Mayor Henyard was very upset with him because he disclosed in a board meeting that she had directed him not to send trustees payroll records. There's a board meeting that precedes this October 21st date where you can see on the YouTube video that she's asking him, did I tell you not to send this information? He answered in the affirmative, and then that was the source of her anger with him. He was later called into a meeting with the mayor in the presence of Janice Johnson and Dorothy Brown, and the mayor in effect told him that he should never contradict her in public and that he should shade the truth.
crazy work, bro. So remember she talked about that whole bullying thing? Imagine being called into an office surrounded by Tiffany's goons and she telling you, you better not fuck up again or else something's going to happen to you. That's textbook bullying. She feels like she's in the mafia. That's what she feels like. She feels like Kamal Woods or whatever the fuck her boyfriend's name is going to be her bodyguard too. Well, guess what, Tiffany? There's a lot more harder people than Kamal, your burnout, smoky smelling boyfriend. I promise you. Okay? But don't worry. It gets even better, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a lot of this information we know to be rumor, but to have someone officially come out, do a report, do an investigation, and confirm a lot of suspicions on the internet gives this whole situation a different light. And I think Tiffany's going to do her very best to try to do some crowd control, but it's different now. And I think a lot of this information is going to help bring Tiffany down now that it's not just rumor and someone completed an investigation and said this is what's happening. But let's move forward to FOIA because, you know, we need to know the information that's happening in government. That's why we have these amazing tools such as FOIA to get information to see what's happening. But Tiffany didn't like that. Let's move forward.
At the beginning of Mayor Henyard's tenure, Clerk Allison Key was responsible for FOIA requests. According to Clerk Key, when a FOIA request would come in, she and her team would review it, then they would send it to the relevant department. There were FOIA liaisons in each department, and it was their responsibility to look for responsive documents and then provide them to Clerk Key so then she could respond to the FOIA. The increased number of FOIAs over time posed a challenge given the limited resources that were devoted to FOIA. So what we saw is a very small staff, very few resources, and an expanding number of FOIAs that came in. There were not sufficient resources to be able to meet that rising interest in the governance of the village of Dalton. Now, there were many allegations that we received that Mayor Henyard ordered village personnel to simply stop responding to FOIA. We were not able to verify those allegations, in part because village employees who reported directly to Mayor Henyard did not cooperate in our investigation.
And this is where that dictatorship comes in. Remember, again, people didn't cooperate because Tiffany's directly over them. So if you want to have a job tomorrow, you better not give no information to that short lady who be trying to investigate us. You know, that annoying lady who used to be a mayor, the Lightfoot woman. You better not cooperate because you're going to feel my wrath. And, you know, it just more and more confirms how Tiffany Henyard feels about herself, bro. She thought that she could actually shut down a FOIA request system. Like, she shut down basically the whole department. There's nothing left to do FOIA. She got rid of Clerk Key, and I think she gave the responsibility to Keith Freeman, which we all know disappeared over time. Nobody's responding to FOIA. That department is dead, folks. And she thought that was just okay. You got me fucked up.
However, in April of 2023, trustees passed an ordinance intended to get the FOIA process back on track. And that ordinance read in part, quote, whereas the Board of Trustees finds that the village has experienced an insurmountable backlog of FOIA requests due to failures of village staff to respond to requests for information from the FOIA officer at the instruction of the mayor and her village administrator. The trustees obviously believe that that's precisely what had happened, which is that the mayor had instructed people within the departments not to respond to FOIAs.
But anyways, let's move on to the wonderful Amazon purchases. And Tiffany Henyard alluded to these purchases before, probably trying to mitigate some of the damages that she would receive for it. But let's move forward into Amazon purchases.
Now, the vast majority of the purchases on Amazon do appear to be for routine items such as office supplies, office furniture, and supplies for the police department. And the Amazon order details show that these orders were delivered either to Village Hall or to the police department. Additionally, Many of the largest purchases on Amazon, 3 of which we identified in the August presentation, were related to materials or supplies for the skating rink. This includes $5,099 for artificial ice tiles, $33,000 for artificial ice tiles,
$33,000 on ice tiles. Man, and I'm gonna throw that video up once again. That video where Tiffany says, "We spent the money on ice, folks. We did it on ice. We did it for you. We spent that money on ice, and y'all making a big fuss out of this." You remember that video, right? Bro, that's bullshit, Tiffany. You had no business spending $40,000 on artificial ice tiles. Talk about the biggest waste of money on the city. And I'll point it out. Nobody uses that ice rink. I could see if it was helping the kids who were gangbanging and turning their life around. Bro, nobody uses that shit.
$600 artificial ice tiles, $4,700 artificial ice tiles, and then $3,700 for ice skates. Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just pick up and conclude on the Amazon purchases. The various routine office supply and office furniture purchases simply do not appear to be in compliance with the village's purchasing policy as we described. There appears to be no centralized purchasing or inventory control as required in the purchasing policy. So while we were able to see that these various purchases were delivered either to Village Hall or to the police department, there is no tracking system for what happened to them after they arrived here. And while Janice Johnson was listed as the originator for a number of these purchases, what we saw in the Amazon records is that there were 9 other purchasing sources identified in the Amazon records. So
let's list those people out. 9 unidentified people in the Amazon purchasing records. And keep in mind, these purchasing records aren't specific. Who the fuck knows what they bought? And who the fuck knows if it was to compliance or not? We don't know. So let's list out some names. Kamal Woods. Oh, baby, you want to buy yourself a BMW, baby? You only need $20,000 more dollars, baby? Oh, just do it on the credit card. Do it on the credit card. We got Keith Price. Oh, Keith, you want to buy a ham? You want to buy a turkey, Keith? Put it on the credit card. You know, Darlene Gray Everett, possible. You know, she's probably too low of an individual. Keith Freeman. Remember, Chief Lacey. Remember Sergeant Lacey in that nice car that he was whipping? That nice blacked out Dodge, I don't know what it was, a Durango or some shit. He was whipping it though. That shit was murdered out. Black windows, everything. It was amazing. All these people were using that credit card. I promise you. They were using that shit. 9 other people. But we don't really know who. They was just spending on some shit. We don't really know what. This is the biggest scandal. Listen, they had something good going. They were going to suck this city dry. And about 30 people would have benefited while everybody else were starving. That was the Tiffany Henyard way.
lots of people were charging things and purchasing them from Amazon. And we similarly found no evidence that the purchases related to the ice rink that were done in 5 separate purchases totaling approximately $48,000, that they were done consistent with the purchasing policy either. For example, we were unable to find evidence that these purchases were done as a result of a competitive bidding process, which an amount of that size would have been triggered by the purchasing policy, nor is there evidence that these particular purchases were presented to the board prior to approval.
And of course they weren't, of course they weren't passed over to the board. Tiffany was the queen of sneaking shit into an agenda. The board didn't know jack shit what was happening half the time, which is why they shut everything down. But let's move forward, okay? Tiffany Henyard, remember she said it was never her off the insurance, and she was never the problem? Well, again, Lori Lightfoot confirms to us that indeed they will cover every government official other than Tiffany because she's a piece of shit. Let's go hear that.
Now, the village was eventually able to obtain coverage for the 2024-25 period. However, there were two important concessions that the village was compelled to make in order to make sure that it had insurance coverage from August of 2024 to August of 2025. As you can see from this slide, the village was compelled to pay more for less coverage. We have here a kind of side-by-side comparison of what the coverage was under general liability, law enforcement, public official, and auto liability. In the preceding year, the coverages were almost equal at $11 million. But as you can see, in the current coverage period, there's a significant decrease in the amount of insurance coverage that the village now has to handle whatever liability issues may come up. The other significant concession was that the insurance carriers refused to cover Mayor Henyard. As you can see in the third bullet, there's a quote directly from the insurance policy. The insurer covers all elected officials, provides that as a separate part of its coverage, but specifically in writing excluded any claim made against any insured which is brought by, on behalf of, or against the following entities or individuals, and that is Tiffany Henyard. And the emphasis here was in the original. This coverage.
So basically, Tiffany fucked her city. I mean, even down to the officials who want some insurance while driving the damn company vehicle, bro. I mean, I just want to be existing in a building. And if a chandelier drops on my head, I want to be covered. You know, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Tiffany fucked them up so much to where their coverage is trash now. And they still pay the same amount. Crazy. So obviously that's bad, but the fact that she's not even able to get a policy with them is going to infuriate her, because now she knows the jig is up. She knows that everybody knows for a fact that the only reason they don't really have insurance is because of Tiffany. And man, listen, I'm waiting for the response. I know she's over here just getting red, if she even could get red. You know what I'm saying? She's over here not breathing, throwing a tantrum, breaking shit, slapping Kamal, putting her daughter on timeout. Shit's bad. But anyways, we'll see what happens, man, because she is going to respond. That is her nature, and that is the only thing she knows how to do. So just wait until then. But until then, folks, stay inside, stay safe. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.